Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this webinar this morning. I'm Adebola Ajayi, and I'm one of two team leaders for the Healthy Minds Employment Service. I'm delivering this presentation today with Shelley Monaghan, who is from the IPS Oxford Health NHS Trust. Further down on our slides and our presentation today, we will talk about Healthy Minds, what we do, and the IPS service, so you have a better understanding of what we do as primary and secondary care. So this webinar is an introduction to mental health in the workplace. Just a bit on the, just a bit on the ground rules. Maxine has talked about putting questions in the chat function, and we'll try and answer your questions as we go along. There is a Q&A section at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to ask your questions. No question is a silly question. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have that might come up from the presentation or things that you've been thinking about with regard to mental health. Please respect confidentiality. It might be that you want to discuss something that that might be confidential. We just would appreciate if we can keep this in the webinar, and we respect confidentiality. And also a reminder that it's been recorded, so let's just be mindful of that when we're talking about things, especially when it comes to things to do with mental health in the workplace. If you have a question in the question and answer section, please put your thumb up, or actually we've said put it in the chat function. I think that's just easier to just put the questions in the chat function if you have a question to ask. Okay, right, just going on to my next slide. Now, the aim of this presentation today is to give you an understanding of what mental health is and well-being. We also hope to help you recognize and understand the most common mental health conditions, because there are quite a few mental health conditions out there. We hope to help you feel more comfortable and confident about mental health, to recognize our own unconscious bias. We're going to talk about that a bit further down in the webinar. We hope to help you understand the importance of good mental health in the workplace. And we'd also like to introduce a new toolkit, which is the Strive and Thrive toolkit. Right, okay, so what is primary and secondary mental health care? Now, I work with Healthy Minds, and we're a primary mental health care provider, and we deal with people suffering from mild to moderate mental health problems. Now, primary health care is really about mental health challenges that are managed through the GP and do not require specialist support. Secondary care, on the other hand, which is the provider that Shelley works with. I'm not sure what's going on with my slide. Secondary mental health care, they're providers that have to do with psychological well-being services, adult mental health teams, the community mental health teams, crisis resolution, and home treatment teams. And there are early intervention teams as well. Right, I'm back to my slide. Okay. Now, Healthy Minds and Richmond Fellowship. I'm just going to, I work with a charity, which is Richmond Fellowship, and we provide the employment service for Healthy Minds. Healthy Minds is the NHS mental health service in Buckinghamshire. Now, it's part of the Oxford Health Mental Health Trust, but it's the mental health service. And Healthy Minds provides therapeutic support to people that are experiencing common mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. And just like I said in the previous slide, it's the primary health care provider. So the employment advice service is delivered by Richmond Fellowship. Now, Richmond Fellowship is a voluntary sector provider of mental health services contracted to provide the employment service. And we have a team of employment advisors who offer one-to-one support to clients who experience mental health issues and require the employment support. And in order to access the employment support, you must first be referred to us from Healthy Minds. All our clients come from Healthy Minds, who conduct an assessment and then refer if the issues are work-related issues. So we also conduct a telephone assessment, and then you get to work one-to-one with an employment advisor. So I will hand over to Shelley to talk about the individual placement and support, which is the secondary care.
Thank you, Adebola. So my name is Shelley Monaghan, and I'm an IPS team leader. I manage a team of employment specialists that are embedded into every adult mental health team and early intervention service. So what is individual placement and support? So it's a supported employment evidence-based model supporting people into employment. It's based on 8 key principles. So we are very much about gaining competitive employment, not necessarily volunteering. No one is excluded from the service. And when I say that, I mean diagnosis is no barrier. So that's how we support people. It's very much based on client preference. So it's absolutely what that client wants is the service, is the job they want is the one we will help them to achieve. The job search is rapid. So within 4 weeks of coming onto the programme, we will be looking for work. A key part of our service is working with employers. So very much approaching employers on a client's behalf. So this can really support a diverse workforce. We can match job vacancies with committed and motivated candidates. As part of that, we offer a free wellbeing service to all employers. And so particularly in this current time, we've been supporting with things such as what we're doing here, introduction to resources, material, and just supporting employees with their mental wellbeing, whether it's from working from home or elsewhere. This offer is open to all employers, and I'm happy to discuss this further with anyone in the meeting today who would like to take it outside of this meeting. 90% of people with severe mental illness would potentially looking for work. Thank you, Adebola.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Now we'll go to what is mental health. We all have mental health, and it's the way we think and feel and our ability to deal with ups and downs, which life always throws somehow. And mental health is something we all have. When we enjoy good mental health, we have a sense of purpose and direction, and we have the energy to do the things we want to do and the ability to deal with the challenges that happen in our lives. Now, being in paid employment is generally considered to be a good thing. It's more than just a way of earning a living. It provides the identity, the contact and friendship with other people. It's a way of putting structure in our lives and an opportunity to meet goals and to contribute. And unemployment can be linked with poor physical and mental health and poverty. And paid employment also brings its own pressures on our mental health. So what mental health conditions are out there? There's anxiety, there's schizophrenia, there's psychosis, depression, stress, obsessive compulsive disorder. All these mental health conditions are treated either in primary or secondary care. Now, in terms of businesses and how it impacts at work, it's important that you have an understanding of the Equality Act, because this legally protects people from discrimination in the workplace and in the wider society. There are 9 protected characteristics, and disability is one of them. And it's defined as if you have a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term negative effect on your ability to do normal daily activities, then you're classed as disabled. Now, let's talk a bit about stigma, because we all have stigma and unconscious bias. Why is it important that we're aware of our own bias? Everyone holds some form of unconscious bias, and there are no exceptions. And I think the key is to become more aware of our biases, which may influence our thoughts and behavior. Some examples might be affinity. We can favor people who look, sound, and behave like us, maybe because they have the same educational background or the same hobbies, or it may be confirmatory bias where we're searching for information to confirm our existing perception of people. So we have blind spots to things that contradict existing perceptions. There might be social comparison bias where we're constantly comparing ourselves to others in order to develop a sense of individual or group identity, and we may see others or see ourselves as better than others. And sometimes in a work context, people like to employ or work with people in the like group who seem like you or sound like you. So thus restricting the differences, the diversity, and therefore we may limit our access to talented people, mainly because of our biases. Now, let's go to stress and just talk a bit about stress, because it's one of the most common causes of work-related illness. And there's actually no medical definition of stress. Is stress a mental health problem? That's another question that would be good to actually just examine. Stress isn't a psychiatric diagnosis, but stress can cause mental health problems, and mental health problems can cause stress. So it goes both ways. And there are two types of stress. There's the eustress, which is good stress that motivates us to continue working. And there's distress, when good stress becomes too much to bear or cope with. And I think it's good to be able to understand both sides, what is good stress and what is bad stress or distress, because good stress does come with its own motivations. Now let's look at what causes stress at work. Now in the workplace, there are pressures. There are lots of pressures in the workplace, like we all are familiar with. And there's a pressure of deadlines or work that is too difficult, or it could be too easy. It could be shift work as well that would cause stress, or physically demanding work. It could be a lack of control over what you do and how you do it. It could be the poor working conditions. So there might be a lot of noise, there might be bad lighting, the furniture might not be adequate, or the equipment might not be adequate. There could be poor communication from your employer about changes. I think communication in the workplace can be a major stress factor. There could be unclear expectations and conflicting messages, or there could be a lack of managerial support. And the list is endless. A lot of things cause stress based on the particular organization or the industry or the work environment. So it's important that for your organization, you're aware of what causes stress. What are those things that could potentially be stressful for employees or team members? Stress in the workplace. We all experience stress differently in different situations. Sometimes you might be able to tell right away when you're feeling under stress. At other times, you might keep going without recognizing the signs. And stress can affect you both emotionally and physically, and it can affect the way you behave. Employees, I think generally all employees can feel stressed at work at any given time. Some of the reasons may include the workload demands, job security, work relationships, work-life balance. So those are things that need to be at the back of our minds in terms of the workplace and the kind of expectations, and we might be relationships within the performance and pressure as well, actually, in terms of the workplace and the stressors. So it's being able to recognize what those stressors are and putting in place those things that would mitigate the stressors. Now, let's just look at mental health at work and mental health and well-being. Is it important? Definitely mental health and well-being is very important at work, because positive mental health allows people to realize their full potential. It helps them to cope with stresses of life. It helps them to work productively and make meaningful contributions to the communities. And so the organizational culture in the workplace, in the business, has a strong influence on health and well-being at work. A positive, inclusive culture towards mental well-being benefits both the individual and the organization. And obviously the economic benefits, because there's a reduced staff turnover, and you have a happier workforce and a more productive workforce who would be able to achieve the goals and the objectives of the organization. So it's important to be able to identify what factors, what benefits there are to having a good organizational culture and promoting that in the workplace. We have a new toolkit, which is the Strive and Thrive at Work toolkit, which is a work health and well-being toolkit. And Shelley will just run us through the toolkit and how that can work both for the manager and for the employee as well.
Thank you, Adebola. So yes, I'd like to introduce you to the Strive and Thrive at Work and Health Wellbeing Toolkit. This is a structured framework for proactive conversations to support employees. We all have mental health, just as we have physical health. It moves up and down along a spectrum that's from good to poor. Considering how much time we spend at work, it's not surprising that workplace environments and culture affect our well-being. For many of us, work is a major part of our lives. It's where we spend much of our time, where we get our income, and where we can make friends. Having a fulfilling job can be good for your mental health and general well-being. However, we all have good days and bad days. We all have times when life gets on top of us. Sometimes it's work-related, sometimes it's something else. It could be our health, relationships, or circumstances outside of work. We believe in workplaces where everyone can thrive, We also believe in the role of employers, employees, and businesses in creating thriving communities. Good mental health at work and good management go hand in hand, as there is strong evidence that workplaces with high levels of mental well-being are more productive. Addressing well-being in the workplace increases productivity by as much as 12%. 60% of employees say they'd feel more motivated and more likely to recommend their organisation as a good place to work in if their employer took action to support mental well-being. So this slide that's up now is the introduction. So the plan itself is split into 3 sections. So, sorry, Adebola, do you want to go back to the last one? The plan itself is in 3 sections. The first section is the plan to keep yourself on an even keel. The second section is the work health and wellbeing promotion plan. And the third is the health and wellbeing first aid kit, a plan for what to do when everything gets a bit too much. So, okay, so we've heard that it's a proactive tool. Prevention is better than cure. It's usually best to prepare plans rather than wait until problems arise, being proactive, not reactive. But these are living documents that you can regularly review. So supervision, appraisal process is a good opportunity to develop and review the plans. Some people might like to develop a plan on their own to support their own well-being. That's absolutely fine, a self-management plan. It's the employee's own plan. Each of them will have to work out what works for them. Some people might want to use a different format. Again, that's absolutely fine. However, line managers do share responsibility for the health and well-being of their staff. If the employees want help and support from their manager, it is important to discuss with them ways in which they can best be supported for their mental well-being. So all of these sections also include what my manager can do to support me. So it really opens up the conversation, if you like, to having those supported conversations in the workplace. Thanks, Adebola. Okay, so section 1, a plan to keep yourself on an even keel. So it's really identifying the things that are important to you outside of work. What do you need to do every day or every week to keep on an even keel? And what can your manager do to support you? Juggling the demands of a job and things outside of work that are important to you is not always easy, especially in these times that we're working in. Now more than ever, we really need to maintain positive mental health, whether we're working from home or in the workplace. So this is the way of trying to strike a balance that you remain on an even keel wherever you may be working. Have a think about yourselves and what that might feel to you. So if you was thinking about what's important to you outside, what would you plan to do weekly and what your manager could do? Thanks, Adebola. Okay, there we go. We've got some examples here. So identifying things to keep yourself on an even keel. So this is sort of things that I call sort of top tips for mental well-being in the workplace. So might be having regular breaks. Do you know what? It might be not eating lunch at your desk, which we all do. Getting up, going for a health walk. We call them health walks, and it's great because it really feels that sense of well-being. Might be talking to a friend, colleague, having a buddy in the workplace, something to look forward to. Again, it's very subjective, but this is what we all need to think about in terms of our own plan. So thanks, Adebola. So the next thing is the identifying, sorry, can you go to the previous one? Yeah, sorry, go again. So I've lost my thread there. Yes, so again, so what can your manager do? So your manager, thinking about your well-being, it might be actually just having the conversation that you'll let her know when you're going to have difficulties. So you've set that down, if you like, in your plan. Help you prioritize when you've got too much to do. Saying thank you, talking about flexible working policy. That might be helpful to you. There's lots of things that your manager can do to support you, but actually having that open conversation to talk about it is often the starting point. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next bit is when you're not feeling 100%. What you might notice in yourself. So it's important to notice these things in yourself. So when you put that in your plan, it might be that you're feeling agitated, overly sensitive, finding it hard to get up in the morning. What I do know is that it's inevitable that things sometimes will leave you feeling a bit stressed out at work. We all have a first aid kit for minor physical cuts and bruises. We need the same for emotional cuts and bruises. So, okay, thank you, Adebola. There you go. So these are things that you might notice when things are getting really too much. So disturbed sleep patterns, feeling agitated, drinking too much. So it's thinking about these things and then what you will do to support yourself when you're feeling like that. So it could be thinking about your 5 ways to well-being. It could be, there you go. It could be confiding in family and friends. It could be taking more exercise. I think we probably all sort of are aware of those well-being things that support us. I like to have a read or a hot bath. Talking to your manager about how you're feeling and maybe asking for some support. Thanks, Adebola. And what can your manager do if you're really feeling too much? It's all things, but sometimes no matter how much we do, it is too much. So how can your manager support you? So these are the conversations that you'd have actually, that maybe you need some support to make adjustments in the workplace. Maybe you need to help to reduce your workload for a while. Okay, sorry. So, yeah, so what I will be doing, so the occupational health, GP, maybe an employment specialist, etc. It might be that you have to take some time off. Maybe you could be supported back to work with a robust back to work plan. So thank you for listening to me introduce these resources. I am going to be sending them around after this presentation, so you'll get to see them. So they do come with, so it's the plan itself, and it's a manager's guide, and then there's also a recording if you wanted to listen to that. But also, if anybody wanted some support with it, then I'm more than happy to support anybody that did want to have help. So we've got our tools and resources page there with some useful links also. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shirley. So we have tools and resources. Obviously, as Shirley mentioned, there's the occupational health. There's also the employee assistance program that provides support to people. And I know for businesses, it's looking at how that will work in supporting your staff. If staff or if employees or probably even business owners need support, you could refer through Healthy Minds for the Employment Advice Service. Or it could as well be through the Oxford Health Foundation Trust at the IPS service. It depends on the mental health situation, because Healthy Minds does the primary care, the Oxford IPS service does the secondary care. But however, if there's a bit of uncertainty about which one it is, if you refer, whichever one you refer to out of the two, you will get referred to the right service because we're working together. The telephone number is available there if you want to call or if you want to text for Healthy Minds. I know for the IPS service, the email address is there on the screen. And as well, ACAS has a lot of resources available for employers, for employees, for businesses. They have webinars, they have lots of tools that can support the businesses as well. I know there is a question in the chat function. It says, these are good suggestions. Is there support for managers and individuals to actually have these conversations? Questioning and listening skills, emotional intelligence, the manager managing their own stress in having these conversations. I know part of what we delivered today is part of our employer engagement workshop. And that's one of the things that we're building more and more, just that opportunity to support managers and to support employers in the workplace. So that's something that is possible for you to have that support. Is Healthy Minds available across the UK? Healthy Minds is the talking therapy service for Buckinghamshire. Across the UK, they're called different things. Yeah. So it's hard for me to say which area, but if you do go on the NHS website, I'm sure they have talking therapy services in different places.
Hi, I've just seen a chat come up to me. Hi, Shelley, do you visit to discuss our offices at all? Absolutely, more than happy to do that. More than happy to do that. Very much we work with employers. We're quite a new service, and we're really trying to build up build up those employer links. More than happy to come out. There's a whole team of us. We have lots of resources. Happy to support you in any way we can. Going back to the previous question about mental health first aid. So absolutely support mental health first aid. So we do offer it at the Trust. It can be arranged. So I'm not sure if any of you are aware of the Stevenson Farmer report, which came out in the back end of 2017, which was a great report and really introduced workplaces to mental health core standards at work. And one of those core standards was to have mental health first aiders. So I know a lot of businesses are adopting these core standards. So mental health first aiders. The other one was a wellness plan, which is pretty much what I've talked about today. It's a version of a wellness plan. The wellness plan itself talks more about mental health, if you like, but the document I've just introduced you to is more about every single employee. So those people that, well, I haven't got mental health issues, you know, it's you're sort of taking that away, because absolutely everybody that goes to work has good days and bad days, and therefore using tools such as this can be really, really helpful. Yes.
And our next webinar will be talking about conversations about mental health in the workplace as well. And that's something that we do try to go to businesses. We can deliver that in the workplace. If you want to know about conversations in the workplace, we're happy to come over and deliver this training as well. But we're going to have a webinar as with Buckingham Business first. I think the next is probably September is the next webinar, but it will cover conversations about mental health in the workplace. The question that was asked by Andrew, the first question as well. Okay, do we have any more questions? I think we have covered all the questions.
Okay. Please feel free to unmute your mics as well if you'd like to actually, you know, ask a question vocally, and direct any questions to Adebola or Shelley.
Are we going to get this resources after the webinar?
Indeed you are. So I'm going to send them straight to Maxine now. In fact, I could probably sit and do it. So make sure you get them straight away.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Share that and send it over.
Just to say thank you, it was really, really interesting. I work for an employee assistance programme, and it's so important to know the full range of support that's available. So that's really, really, really useful. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was very useful.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any more questions or any queries or anything they'd like to raise? Please feel free to either pop them in the chat room or just address them to us now.
The toolkit you mentioned, is that different from is that a special resource that you can get to help your team?
Yeah, so that's the idea. So it's a framework. It's to improve confidence with managers to be able to talk, have those conversations. So it gives you that structured framework and ask those questions. It comes with some really robust guidance. So it's difficult having those conversations sometimes, isn't it? So it gives you that space actually to open it up. So the employee can have a look at it first, and you can sit down together.
How can we get that toolkit?
I'm literally gonna send it to Maxine now, and she can forward it to all of you, including the manager's guide. Also, if you have any questions or queries, more than happy to answer them. I'm more than happy for anyone to have my email address. If you ask Maxine, I'm sure she can give it to you.